Hi, everybody. Stephanie Battolino here, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Walk the Walk and Talk the Talk. And today I wanted to just briefly talk about the onboarding process and what that looks like for a new hire who identifies as either transgender or non-binary. I talk a little bit about this in my book, Reflections from Both Sides of the Glass Ceiling, which, shameless self-promotion, is available everywhere or at your local bookstore. And I talk about it primarily as an aspect of moving from policy to practice. Many companies have already established policies that include gender identity, gender expression, which protects non-binary and trans people. But it's how you imbue that into the culture, what that looks like every day in the practices of your employees, in meeting people where they are, people that perhaps they've never interacted with before. That's really the ticket, and that's where we need to move. And that's primarily where a lot of my work tends to resonate. So, but the big headline for me, quite frankly, is you have a new employee who's coming in as their authentic self. It should be no big deal. However, there are going to be situations and cultures that maybe it is a bit more of a big deal. And I think that's why it's important for us to have a little bit of a dialogue about it. It is very different than, for example, what I was faced with when I transitioned at New York Life, so many years ago, back in 2005, because I was already working there as my former self for 5 years. And it's the same thing for any other person who's transitioning on the job. So what does that mean? Well, that means that depending on how long they've been there, they already have a shared history with their colleagues as their former self. So then they have to deal with the new person, if you will, at least physically, to some degree at least, than who was previously occupying that position. And that's what makes the difference. And that's why companies have transition plans and that guide them through all the changes that need to happen, whether it's with systems or with your email or with your caller ID, the signage outside of your office. Most importantly, I think it's the communication process that's inherent in each transition plan that is really the most important, which defines who do you communicate this to, by whom, and to whom. And I think that's very important. To who? Oh my God, that was terrible English. Anyway, but that's not what we're talking about here. At the end of the day, a new trans or non-binary employee is there to do the job that they were hired for. Case in point, I was just working with a large international company that had someone who during the interview process said, "Hey, I am trans and I want to show up for my first day of work as my authentic self." They felt it was important to bring me in and do a little trans awareness talk with the work group that she was going to be a part of, as well as a larger group of folks that wanted to be a part of it, whether they were diversity and inclusion people or HR people or the plant that this individual was going to be working in, that larger management team. So we had a conversation about, pronouns and things of that nature. And that was important to have. But what was fabulous about that was how they came back to me in like the Q&A piece. And they were like, "Steph, we thank you for this. This is important that we had this conversation. And it certainly helps us kind of expand our thinking. But at the end of the day, we are just a group of folks that are more than ready to welcome this new person into our group, someone we've never met before, we've never seen before, and they're there to do a job, and we're there to work as a team and to embrace her as a part of the team." And I was like, oh my God, if we can just take that and turn it into pixie dust and spread it all across corporate America, we'd be in a much better place with respect to trans and non-binary workplace inclusion. So, so that's really what it's all about. And Lastly, I would say a lot of people will ask me, well, what about an LGBTQ employee resource group, or ERG? Um, how do they fit into all this? My position on all of that is, I believe an ERG, an LGBTQ ERG, and ERGs more broadly, should be a part of the orientation process, whatever it is in your particular company. Um, because I think by having the ERGs come in and tell the new employees, hey, we're here, this is what we do, and we'd love you to be a part of our group. Um, that sends a really strong message about your company's commitment to fostering a culture of inclusion. And so that's what I would say about ERGs and kind of how do they fit into this onboarding process as well. It's certainly not, membership is, of course, completely voluntary, but it's the whole notion of knowing that they are there. And it's a place where employees of like mind and their allies can come together is sends a really, really important message, I think. And and at the end of the day, it's like I always say to any company that I work with, any group that I work with, regardless of all the things that I've thrown at you and the time that we're together with respect to pronoun usage and do's and don'ts and facets of allyship, at the end of the day, if you let your own personal sense of integrity and respect guide your actions, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. And I want to leave it there and leave that with you on this inaugural edition of Walk the Walk and Talk the Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Until then, this is Stephanie Battolino saying, have a great day. Take care.